Spoilers for John Wick Chapter 4, and the previous installments, of course. It is amazing that we still have John Wick movies at their peak. I'd listen to anyone argue that they've kept on getting better and better as they've gone along, which for a part 4 is crazy.
I gotta tell you, I'm a huge fan, and so far you haven't disappointed.
I grew up with film culture that hated the 4th Indiana Jones, hated the 4th Alien, hated the 4th Star Wars. To be honest, I have a soft spot for all of those examples, but that's beside the point. Even more recently, we've gotten movies like Toy Story 4, which needlessly cut open the cathartic emotional scars of wrapping up the perfect animated trilogy. Reeves' other action icon, Neo, was brought back to life in the 4th Matrix movie to mixed results. I like that movie, but the action seriously sucks. Fourquels, even more than threequels, risk ruining everything. They risk jumping the shark and sullying the good name the series in question is associated with. But not motherfucking John Wick.
I'm going to need a gun.
John Wick has managed a fantastic, if not always pitch perfect, run of 4 films. They have maintained a stamp of quality. The action has gone from strength to strength, and we can look back on it all as an epic saga.
Last words, Winston?
Just have fun out there.
John Wick gets around its sequelitis because it is designed by its very nature to keep getting bigger and more ridiculous. In the first movie, John is just avenging his dog against one gangster's weasel of a son. But Winston warns him that if he puts so much as a pinky back in, there will be consequences.
Have you thought this through? I mean chewed down to the bone. You dip so much as a pinky back into this pond, you may well find something reaches out.
The idea of the high table getting more and more ferocious the more John goes back to work is seeded in, and I also think the nature of the first 3 taking place straight after the other does make the upscaling more palatable, as if you're getting to the 3rd act in a single experience. Chad Stahelski shepherded the sequels after teaming with David Leitch on Chapter 1, and their contributions to the franchise have both been marvellous. It's incredible to me that the franchise's biggest misstep is deciding to subtitle the 3rd movie and absolutely nothing else. John Wick Chapter 2, John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, John Wick Chapter 4. God, that's awkward. It's one of those subtitles that gets immediately forgotten upon release too. No one is going around calling it Wick 3 Parabellum. They're just saying Wick 3, aren't they? Even if it ends up being used in the movie really nicely.
Parabellum.
It's still unnecessary, damn it, and made even more stupid a subtitle by Part 4. But honestly, pretty amazing that that's the biggest complaint about the series.
Yeah, not really.
John Wick and Mission Impossible have been flying the flag for blockbusters that look and feel like they actually cost $200 million over the last 10 years. Now that Maverick, The Batman and Avatar have brought the cavalry, we could be heading back towards a blockbuster renaissance. With a new Mad Max around the corner and Avatar 3, as well as The Ballerina and the final mission, the future's looking bright. Well, not for all the bad guys. They're about to get absolutely mashed. How has John Wick managed to stay relevant even after a tricky 4th chapter? Why is it still one of the action series GOATs? I'm going to break down all that goodness, and I hope you have as much fun watching this as I'm going to have making it, because it's John Wick. I always relish the opportunity to do a John Wick video. It's John Wick. Yeah! Gorgeous visuals and mood. In the first movie there's plenty of neon lights, sure, but by the time we get to the later films, pretty much every location is lit like they're in a nightclub. And you know what? Nobody minds, because it just looks that f***ing good. I don't think I can tire of watching dudes walking through art galleries in the finest suits bathed in all manner of fluorescent lights. When Wick meets Scott Adkins' portly gangster killer, you look at the cluster of lights behind him and it makes no sense. No one would ever sit here in this lighting and conduct business, but it looks so damn good it doesn't matter. It's motivating the light in the scene to a whole new level. The Wick team have dialed up the style of this world to a fever pitch. Story should always come first, but even when the Wick series has plodded along in certain sequences narrative-wise, it always manages to make the locations we visit pop with distinctive moods and colour palettes. John Wick 4 is easily the best looking film in the series, however, which is no easy feat considering the calibre of what came before. It's really exciting to see action movies that lovingly craft every inch of not just its action cinematography, but the look of every single shot. You can tell that Stahelski and cinematographer Dan Louston cared immensely, and sought to make sure that this would be the prettiest John Wick movie yet. Expanding already great world building. John Wick has a fantastic roster of supporting characters that always get given just enough of a backstory given in the narrative or implied through their design and costuming that gives us an intriguing window into that world. And whilst I would have loved to see the return of actors in the series like Common and Halle Berry, I love that the Wickathon opts to consistently bring in new actors and with them new characters. Truly the only character who didn't return for part 4 when they really should have is John Leguizamo's Aurelio. He totally should have been at John's funeral, and he should have taken care of Wick's dog. Where did he go, man? He just disappears after part 2. The world of John Wick has ended up feeling so expansive in just 4 movies because it's always giving us new characters and places. It's crazy that this world, on just one planet in a single time period, is bigger and better fleshed out than franchises released at the same time which span multiple worlds and multiple decades. I really think that is all to do with relying too much on bringing back loop shittos. When someone is liable to pop up and cameo with every step you take, the world ends up feeling ludicrously small. John Wick Beyond. Okay, I'll stop that now. So many of the supporting characters we've met across the series could get their own spin-offs. A trick I think John Wick 4 does especially well is it sets up a bunch of different spin-off worthy characters, but it never makes the audience feel like they're being groomed for the position. All the characters have an organic reason to show up and confront Wick, and their presence never overshadows the story at hand. Chapter 4 is definitely John's movie, just as the previous chapters were.
You and I left a good life behind a long time ago, my friend.
Donnie Yen's Kane is intentionally set up as another John Wick, in the sense that he is another legendary top-tier assassin who simply operates head and shoulders above even the standard of the High Table's best assassins. Both these men are outliers, their skill sets are often unmatched, save for the instances in which they come face to face, and oh boy, is it electric when they do come face to face. But the interesting contrast between them is the fact that Kane has, as the movie suggests, something to live for and something to die for. His daughter is the reason why he agrees to hunt Wick in the first place. His hunt isn't born out of hatred or disdain for his old friend, far from it. These two men would rather not trade blows, but are forced to. As a physical adversary for Wick, you couldn't get much better than martial arts legend Donnie Yen. Kane and Wick's place in the world of the assassins is so keenly interesting because they both occupy the same place of status and vulnerability in that world. They are some of the most proficient warriors in the entire High Table coterie, and yet they are forced into games where they must kill each other at the behest of It Skarsgård. They are incredibly deadly, but bound by the same insipid rules that have curbed their true happiness and wounded their lives. Their relationship is the heart of the final instalment, and it couldn't have been played better. Kane's storyline in the movie naturally segues into a fight with Sanada Hiroyuki's Shimazu, and his victory forwards the main plot whilst also establishing events for a future movie. In a Kill Bill-esque moment, Kane says to Shimazu's daughter, Rina Samiyawa's Akira, a formidable fighter in her own right, that he will be waiting for her. Even though his hands were tied, he knows the pain of losing a loved one and is prepared for her to seek revenge down the road. That thread is of course teased in the post-credits scene, and I can only imagine Lionsgate are courting Yen and Samayoa for their own movie set in the Wickverse. Mr. Nobody breaks the mould by being a speaking assassin who doesn't wear a suit. He's a less seasoned assassin than Kane and Wick, but younger and hungrier. Plus he does have this sweet backpack folding armour. Where does he get those wonderful toys? Mr. Nobody and his dog could also carry a feature if they chose to go that route.
So it's Continental then?
Mm-hmm. The long-gestating television series set at the Continental could be perfect. I just hope that they don't set out to make mini-movies with each episode. Tell us a story in the Wick universe that could only be done on television, whether that's a long-form story of the Continental's staff, or an anthology series centering on different assassins who frequent the establishment. There's a really solid opportunity to tell stories in a self-contained 45 minutes to an hour. So much of TV now is designed to be unmissable, and I'd much prefer the Continental allows us to tune in and get a fully fledged tale with a different different killer week to week, allowing it to be more carefree instead of an unmissable 6-part event slog that has really started to lose all meaning in the streaming world. Now that we're heading into spin-off territory, I'm sure some of those aforementioned supporting characters in the Wick movies could crop up again, or even get their own movies.
I love being incontinent. I love being incontinent.
Without Wick front and centre anymore to anchor the expansions, it would tie things up well to see a character such as Sophia meet Ana de Armas' ballerina. I like that they're opting to go with a completely blank slate character for the first spin-off, and de Armas proved she could lead an action movie in that sweet No Time to Die sequence. Hopefully this time she'll have more to do than just the one scene, mind. It's a shame that Lance Reddick only occupies 2 scenes in this movie, and the character is killed off, released just a week after his own passing. No one's at fault here, but I missed getting to see Sharon kick some ass like in Chapter 3. Anyway, may he rest in peace, and thank you for all of those marvellous performances. My only request is that they don't exhaust spin-offs now. Bring us these films at least 2 years apart, don't instantly suggest we're getting sequels to any of them. Let them play out, let the audience decide if you want to see more. I don't think they do the Disney exhaustion route, but you never know. Bigger is better. Sometimes. As I said at the start, the Wick movies are built to handle going bigger and bigger. Whilst the intimacy of some of the first movie's fights have gone, the action has evolved in a fitting direction that has become more like a graphic novel with each chapter. The bigger is better rule with Wick can be summed up in the suits. Once just a stylish fashion choice to commit mass murder in, the second instalment introduced the idea of Kevlar weave within the fabric to essentially use them as bulletproof gear.
How about the lining?
Tactical.
By the time we get to part 4, not only does everyone seem to have a bulletproof suit, but they're just effortlessly blocking bullets with the suits as easily as punches. One guy takes an arrow to his cuff, and in spite of it being dug in there, he yanks it out without issue. Having these bulletproof suits get to this point is knowingly ridiculous, but it also keeps the action up close and personal, causing guns to be used more like melee buffs than long-range weaponry. When the choreography is this good, that's exactly what you want. And hey, if you want some more long-range gun action, the final beat of the movie delivers that in 30 paces or less. It adds another layer of challenge for Wick to have to aim for the head, which is what I also enjoyed about the armoured assassins in 3 and 4, who can only be killed by breaching the gaps in their outfits. Scott Adkins getting to ham it up to high heaven as a mid-game boss in the form of Killer was great fun, even if the whole quest is a bit superfluous in a 3-hour finale. If the third John Wick has a relentless first 30 minutes, then Chapter 4 opts to have an utterly insane last 40 minutes, and I would expect nothing less for the final test of Baba Yaga. The top-down section was based on the video game, The Hong Kong Massacre. Just looking at the gameplay having seen the movie, the influence is clear. The incendiary rounds were beautiful. That whole place got lit up, and the feeling of movement from one top-down unbroken shot was super immersive. I wanted to watch the movie in the cinema again just for that one scene. It also handles tone so well. Stahelski and the team are fully aware that even though we're watching John wade through a bloodbath, there are opportune moments for the action to be funny. Wick falling all the way down the stairs was one of the most ridiculous moments of the whole saga, where the comedy rubber band was stretched as far as humanly possible without breaking. It's so over the top and could only work in the 4th movie. It comes at the perfect point in the movie too, after we've seen Wick fight through tooth and nail to get to those steps. The climb alone is bad enough, adding insult to injury when he gets booted down them. Again, a scene I could go back to the theatre just to see. It's been ridiculous for decades that stunt work isn't recognised, but after watching John Wick 4, it's gone up another notch of insanity because you just look at this stuff. It's making me hurt just look at these badass stuntmen throwing themselves down escalators and into cars. The work to get here across all of the movies needs to be applauded. That final sequence at the Arc de Triomphe is one of those action sequences that makes you slack-jawed repeating, how did they pull this off? The heart remains. I love that dogs have this deeply spiritual connection to their owners across the series, and whilst John and his dog are separated for the events of Chapter 4, new player Mr. Nobody follows in the footsteps of Berry's Sophia as the latest assassin to have a killer dog companion. In a key moment, Wick chooses to save the dog rather than kill Mr. Nobody, a decision that speaks to Wick's keen sense of love and companionship. Mr. Nobody of course can no longer kill Wick after the solid he pulled, and whilst it is a fairly predictable moment, it exemplifies that this series has always been about connection with both the living and the dead, the human and the animal, over simply being ludicrous gun porn. John Wick 4 contains some of my favourite exchanges in the series. The first is when Kane asks John if he thinks his wife can hear him when he reaches out.
You think your wife can hear you?
No.
John replies no, to which Kane asks, then why do you do it? And John replies, I could be wrong.
And why bother?
Maybe I'm wrong.
The feeling of hope that is still sparked within Wick is what is carrying him to the finish line, and it's just a beautiful way to describe how he reaches out to his own wife, even beyond the grave. The second is when Wick, Winston and the Bowery King are en route to the final duel. Wick leaves, ready to go up those steps, and he says that he wants his grave to merely say, a loving husband. Both of these lines show that even though the movie is steeped in action, the whole series has been steeped in more and more ridiculous set pieces, it's never lost the heart and soul that made the first film so engaging. And finally, it knows when to quit. This is the crucial bit. After 4 movies starring Keanu Reeves as John Wick, the character has seemingly been laid to rest. Even though we've been getting sequel after sequel, the stunts have gotten bigger and bigger, we've still been hurtling towards this moment. John was tortured by retirement, he's made to be an assassin, and so if he wants out, the only way to be free is to let go. The series has been setting this up since the very first movie. If Wick 4 is the last John Wick, then I think they've perfectly capped off the saga that started all the way back in 2014 and the first John Wick. He died by a worthy opponent and was finally reunited with Helen. It's been a joy to catch all of these in the cinema and have remained the dominating action saga of the 2010s and into this decade, challenged only by Hunt.
Hunt.
Chapter 1 still has the best emotional hook, the best build-up and the best overall story. The set pieces all get topped by the sequels, but there's something so focused and singular about this story of revenge that it sets it apart from the others. It's the starting point, it's the first time we meet Wick, and it is truly unforgettable. So that's my favourite and it always will be. Chapter 2 is the weakest easily. It has a pretty filler story and it feels like a roundup of ideas unused from the first film. Even so, it's still a good movie at the very least, with some absolutely masterful spectacle that sets up even the lowest standard Wick at an immeasurable high. I did say before that Wick 2 has the best one-on-one in Reeves and Common, but now that has officially been topped by Reeves and Yen. Chapter 3 is my second favourite. I just love it. It has everything I hoped Chapter 2 would be. The first 30 minutes are so relentless and awesome. I adore how each new set piece moves into the next, and the knife fight is one of my all-time favourite scenes. I know a lot of people think this is where it gets a tad too fantastical, but I gotta say, I love that he Batmans out of places.
So that's what that feels like.
I love that the stealth goes next level. I love that he travels to find a high table elder through the desert. Pour all that shit in the Wick pot, baby, honestly. So you might be thinking that leaves Wick 4 third place in my ranking, and that is true. But I don't think it detracts from my satisfaction with the 4th movie, merely that I slightly prefer 1 and 3. Chapter 4 certainly sticks the landing, delivers the most bombastic action sequences in the series, and provides closure to our beloved Baba Yaga. Thank Wick, action movies can still be insane wizardry that pushes the bounds of what the genre can accomplish. It's been a fantastic ride, I've loved pretty much every second of it, and now I've got 4 great John Wick movies to go and rewatch at home, and also eventually when the Prince Charles does another marathon. Whew, squeaky bum time indeed. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. Thank you for watching. I haven't done a Patreon call out in quite a while now, mainly because I don't really offer any goodies on there anymore.
Want the goodies?
Welcome to the goodie room.
I'm very grateful to everyone who's donated or donates to this very day, and you help the channel even at times when the views aren't especially great. If you like what I do at Full Fat, you're a long time viewer and you would like to see me continuing this, then I would really appreciate it if you considered joining any of the Patreon tiers. Contributing to the Patreon helps to keep the lights on at Full Fat HQ, aka my bedroom, and the more patrons I have, the easier it is for me to do more niche topics, less sponsored videos, and generally, honestly, make better videos, because sometimes when the views are on a dip, it is hard to get stuck in like usual, you know. It is just pretty disheartening. It's a weird one. Your enthusiasm lives or dies on how well it's going. Even if you felt like contributing $1, that would be another sweet note in my candy G-string. So please head on over to patreon.com/fullfatvideos and see what you think. Thank you very, very much. A big thank you to my Full Fat tier patron, Dr. Chike, and Nathan Shaw. If you'd like to donate money to my Patreon, you can find me at patreon.com/fullfatvideos. If you'd like to find me on Instagram, you can find me at full_fat_videos. And if you'd like to find me on Twitter, you can find me at fullfatvideos.